on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Ryan, and today we're actually gonna be tackling a much needed install on my 2008 Viper coilovers. So from the factory, this thing comes with monster truck stance, so I just can't have that. And so in preparation, I've got my wheels sent off to powder coat, and while we're waiting for those, I need to get it sitting right, so that way when I get my wheels back, pop them on, and hopefully we'll be looking super spicy. But Paul's on his way over now. He's gonna help me. He's always the MVP of all my builds. He's got the muscles. Told him to eat his Wheaties this morning because likely should be, from everything I've researched, should be kind of a relatively easy install. It's just a matter of muscling like these old bolts that have probably been stuck on the car, never messed with since 2008. So excited to get into it, but let's jump in the box and see what we got. Well, they're beautiful. There's not much to them. So we've got the front and then our rear, and actually went with just like the kind of default spring rate. So like 10 Ks in the front, 12 Ks in the rear. I did opt for the Swift spring upgrade, so hopefully it'll help it ride a little better. They do offer like an optional, like it's got supposedly like 30 clicks of adjustment. They offer like extenders for that, but I feel like it'll be easy enough. Honestly, I'm gonna set everything just the way it is from the factory, like install it just as is. I'm not gonna do any adjustments to it. And then as far as like my adjustments, I'll just go dead center. So 30 clicks of adjustment, I'll go 15 all around and start there and just kind of until I get it dialed in. But also, since I am throwing like bigger wheels and tires on it, 19s fronts, 20s rear, I don't know like height wise if like how those tires and everything will compare to stock. So I don't want to get this fitment dialed in and then in a couple weeks throw new wheels and tires on it and then have to go back and readjust. So simply going to be installing today, and then we'll probably have to spend the day just dialing her in for the new wheels and everything. But so far I'm impressed. There's very few options out there for Viper coilovers, and BC, one, comes in at an affordable price, and two, like their lead time, like they seem to be like the quickest right now just because it's hard to get parts. Everybody's back ordered, but these came in super fast, 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, where some of the other ones were, one, more expensive, and then just their lead time was outrageous. So this car will, I hate to say never, but likely will never see track time. It's just gonna be a fun street car show kind of deal. So I don't need anything too crazy. I just want the look, and from everything I've read and researched, these provide a pretty decent ride quality as well. And again, not much to the box itself, just the basics. Your fronts, rears, and then the wrench, so that way you can actually adjust the height and everything like that. But they'll leave everything as is. The only thing I'm a little bit disappointed with is BC offers a huge range of coilovers, and this is the BR series. So if I had my choice, I'd probably upgrade. I think they have like I believe it's the DS series, but just a little bit better. But with the Viper, you only got one option with BC. It's just the BR series. Paul's arrived, the backup, the main man, so he's gonna help us. And what we're actually gonna do first, obviously gotta get the car up on jack stands. So we're gonna jack it up, and then the real telltale sign is gonna be, I've heard it could go one of two ways. So depending on how nice like the like installer at factory was, because there's an upper bolt and a lower bolt for these coilovers. And from factory, I mean, since it is just a bolt, it can slide in either way. And the upper, I'm not worried about. I think it can go in either way and it's easy to access. But the lower, if they put it in one way, it's gonna get so close to your sway bar, like the end link, that you actually can't get the bolt out, can't get tools in there until you remove the sway bar. But we're hoping not to have to do that. But there's only one way to find out is get the car up in the air and see what we're working with. Paul and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we think we've kind of lucked up. Because like I said before we remove the wheels, there's a bolt that holds the top, and a bolt that slides that holds the bottom. Well, the bottom is kind of your telltale sign, I think, as far as whether you can do it with or without the sway bar end link attached. So the bolt itself, and I'll show you here in a second, but the bolt is kind of slid in front to back. So on the back side, closest to the rear, is where your nut is. So we think we can put a wrench on the front bolt and then turn the nut from behind without having to remove anything. So hopefully that will come true, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the bolt right here that I'm referring to. So it just slips through the bottom of like your stock coilover, and the nut itself is on this back side. You can see it here. So we're gonna put a wrench on this and then try to ratchet it off from the other side. But see how you're working in a little tight spot here, so we're hoping it'll work out where we can put wrench here and then just socket the nut off the back side. But that should make it pretty easy. Like I said, there's only that bolt down there and then the top, and that should be it. We'll loosen everything up on both sides first before we drop the suspension. I'm gonna do my very, very best to set you all up so you can actually see. But again, it's just 2 bolts, thankfully. So if it doesn't work out and there's not a good camera angle, luckily there's not much to it, but I'm trying. So it's an 18mm for the bolt head. The nut itself is 21. So Paul was holding on with the wrench with the 18. I was up here with the 21 and was able to break it free with the breaker bar, and now it's sliding right out. So far so good. We're gonna try to loosen up the top. Like I said, we're gonna get everything loose and then we'll try to actually pull the old stuff out. We have the driver's side just kind of loose enough. We're actually gonna go loosen the passenger side and get everything basically more than hand tight, but not drop anything at this point. But we just wanna make sure we can get everything loose, and then we'll worry about actually taking the bolts completely out. Everything is loose. What we're actually gonna do, because I'm not sure, neither one of us are sure exactly what happens once, we actually pull that bolt out or get to the point where it's about to pull out. So we're gonna just take the jack, kind of put it underneath, the A-arm, and support it a little bit, so that way I'd rather have that there as backup instead of us pull that bolt out and things start the suspension just flops on us. So that'll be there. We're gonna go bottom to top. So we'll get the bottom bolt out, have it supported with the jack, and then go from there, and then do the top. We got overzealous and we spoke too soon. So now I understand it wasn't, the orientation of that bottom bolt, that's what matters. So unfortunately, we had that 50-50 shot of it being correct, but the problem becomes when you try to slide that bolt out, like we were able to tap it with a mallet and get it wedged, free, but it's hitting that, like the sway bar end link, and that's where we can't pull that bolt all the way out. So you have to undo that if you're in the predicament like we are. So I'll show you exactly where it's hitting, but just our luck. Gotta have a little chaos in every install. That's the name of the game. So all you have to do is pull that bolt out, but as you can tell, there's just not enough clearance with that end link. It's just hitting. So had they oriented the bolt the other way, put the nut on this side, and it slipped out to the rear, not a problem. Free, like miles and miles of clearance. But nope, gotta be difficult. So we're gonna have to figure out how to take this end link off. Yeah, because here's the side. You can tell if it was able to slip out this way, not a problem in the world. we'd been done already.
All right, so the theory on how this is gonna work is that we're going to undo the nut on the end of the link on the bottom of the A-arm, and then we're going to be able to lower that arm and push it out, and then pivot the end link, and that should hopefully give us the clearance we need to slide that bolt out.
Hooray! So we spoke too soon, and then I don't know.
It ended up being easier than it needed to be.
Way easier. So did not actually, once Paul had the bright idea of actually just, you know, trying it, let's see what happens when we remove that top bolt. And sure enough, once, I mean, that was kind of a pain to get out, but all things considered, once you get the top bolt out, that actually allowed the coilover to like kind of spin. So you could rotate the whole assembly and clear the end link, so you were able to pop it out. So if, I guess it actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, the orientation won't matter in the end.
Yeah, so the internet, you're a liar. But because I mean that's all I read was you know, if it's in a certain way, you're gonna have to remove that sway bar. But that's not, ended up not being true, because yeah, once you get that swivel in there, even with it initially touching, we were golden. So at this point, yeah, don't want to speak too soon again, but we should be Gucci from here on out. So we'll try our best to muscle the coilover loop, or actually out of position, but looking in good shape. Yes! Success! Dude, we did it! This gives you a good idea of how much shorter these are already. I mean, like you can tell, that's probably a good, actually on camera it doesn't look as drastic, but I don't know, probably an inch, maybe inch and a half or something difference, but should make a world of change as far as the appearance goes. And like I stated earlier, we're just gonna set it, not touch any of the height adjustment at this point. We're just gonna rock what BC sent these as. And then once I actually get the new wheel and tire set up, that's when we'll kind of dial it in and adjust our heights and everything. But install hopefully goes way smoother. Got the new BC on the driver's side. And what we ended up having to do, we put the jack, so we kind of got the bolt on the bottom, got that slid in, put the jack under the control arm, and then raised it, lubed up, just to help it out, slide a little better, and raised up on the jack, was able to get it in between those little tabs enough to get that bolt in there. And then at that point, like once you get everything lined up, you gotta jack it up just right for that bolt to slide through. And then we've tightened it down. Now we're gonna torque it down, and it's 100 foot-pounds on both top and bottom bolts. Paul and I got everything torqued down on the driver's side. So this, well, front-wise, we should be done. So we did the top bolt and bottom bolt, 100 foot-pounds, and we were kind of, just because the bottom is so hard to get to, we were kind of questioning that just a little bit as far as whether it's tight or not, but I feel confident.
Torque wrench clicks, so we're gonna hope for the best.
Hope for the best. And so Paul was kind of pointing out, it looks like she's gonna be very slammed as far as like ride height goes.
Yeah, we had to lift the control arm maybe up about an inch or so to get it in there, which will translate to maybe a little bit more on the outboard side.
Once we get that wheel back up, it's very curious to see, yeah, what our wheel gap if any, or are we tucking? I don't know. We'll find out. But
should look mean.
Yeah, that's for sure. Lower than I want. I don't stance boy stuff. I'm not into that. All right, so front's completely done. Everything's bolted down. Now it's just a matter of, yeah, throwing the wheels back on and moment of truth, see what she looks like on the front. All right, so we're halfway done with the project. Got the front done. Looks actually money. I mean, like, I don't think I would want it necessarily, definitely not any lower, but as long as she's not rubbing or anything like that, I think it's perfect as is. So we kind of lucked up there. It'll be interesting to see, like, once we get the different set of wheels and tires on there, how it sets at that point. But as far as like stock, awesome. Like exactly how I wanted it. So gonna take a little break, then knock out the back. So the front is definitely sitting lower than she was. It looks a lot better, looks a lot meaner. But the rake on this car right now is so crazy just because the front is so much lower than the back. And the back was always like my biggest complaint anyway. But it's to come. But man, that looks so much better. That's the way it should have come from factory. But it went from like a 2-finger gap to like a 1-finger gap. Now that the front is done, we're gonna move on to the back. So first things first, crack the lug nuts, get the back jacked up, get her on jack stand, so then that way we can start working on undoing the suspension. The front we were able to figure out like a good spot to put the jack stand. So the frame on this car is so rigid, what we'll do is actually lift it from the front and then just slide a jack stand, keep the jack. We'll do one side at a time. So the front we did both sides, able to get jack stands on both sides, tackle both sides of suspension. This will do one by one. So we'll just focus on one side. So we'll start with the driver's side, knock it out at the rear, and then move to the other side. But just, I don't know where you put the jacks. So improvise. So the only, we'll say, tricky part for the back, hopefully, is the actual bolts are kind of like inset behind the fender liner. So there's no way to actually like kind of really get to them. So you just got to pull the fender liner out, and it looks to be just a few screws. So we're going to pop those screws out, and hopefully the fender liner just kind of drops down and gives us access to the top bolt. Now that the fender liner's off, I'm gonna do same thing kind of we did on the front. Tackle, it's an 18 and 21 millimeter. So we'll tag team it, have one of us hold while the other one ratchets the bolt out, and hopefully it goes a little bit smoother. There's not, hopefully no like sway bar end links or anything like that in the way on the back. We're perplexed. We've hit a snag, and I don't know why. Like, we've got the top bolt halfway out, bottom bolt kind of halfway out, but they're just wedged stuck. I don't understand. So we're trying to gather any leverage we can to pry on anything we can to get those bolts out. I don't understand. Everything was going very smoothly, but I don't know. We're struggling. So crisis averted, hopefully. What we ended up doing, I don't know why we didn't realize there's a rear sway bar too, so it has the same effect. We talked about it, did a good job with it in the front because you have to take both sides off so that way the sway bar is what's holding everything up. So we loosened it, and it puts that bolt in a pinch, both top and bottom, so they just won't come out. So we've jacked the other side of the car up and got this side off. Now we need to get the other side off. We're trying to do it quickly because we've got jack stands not in ideal locations. I feel like they're there, but primarily the car is being held up by 2 jacks. Not ideal. So kind of rushing this part, but gonna get her done and everything will be great. really wish I had some like tips or tricks for that, but I don't know, a little luck, a few prayers, and it came out, but it was not easy. So definitely by yourself, I don't know how you would have done that, because it took kind of Paul prying on it, me pushing on it, and you got to get it just right for those bolts to come out. But whew, once you get the top off, that top bolt, once it comes out, the bottom is a piece of cake. But there's just so much tension from somewhere. But once you get that, the top off, bolt on the bottom slides out, and then you can use this little squishy, it's like a little squishy pad up there, push the top part of the shock, push it all the way up there, and I don't know what we're squishing in that black pad, but use that, push it all the way up, and then you kind of finagle the fork out, so then basically release the pressure where you can pull the whole spring out. So I don't know, never have to mess with this old junk again, so let's have the new nice BCs on. Here's the finished product. So it's looking good. I kind of rushed the other side, or just because we were kind of, like I said, scared with the jack the way it was. But finished product, it looks really good. Again, I don't really know tips or tricks. Just get a buddy to help you and hope for the best, because it just takes a little bit of prying and a little bit of effort. But they do go in there, and it looks good. It all fits nicely too, so that's nice.
Yep, make sure you got the rear end jacked up completely, both wheels up, because otherwise that sway bar is going to put upward pressure on the strut mount, and that makes getting that bolt out much harder.
Long, hard day. It probably took us, that's what we were trying to figure out. Between breaks and stuff like that, I think we kind of determined probably leave yourself about 6 hours.
Yeah. With
a friend. If you're solo, I mean, like, I would probably still be out here tonight, tomorrow morning. I don't know. I truly don't know how you do it by yourself without a lift. And there's definitely would be a lot of swearing involved, and it's time consuming. So get you a buddy, allow yourself about 6 hours. Yeah, we did good on the front because we raised both sides, took everything off before we put the new stuff on. We should have done that in the rear, so we kind of realized our mistake halfway through, corrected it, but that just made our lives a little bit tricky. So yeah, takeaways from doing this project would be, yeah, raise front, old stuff off, new stuff on, raise rear, both sides, old stuff off, new stuff on, and that's a wrap.
Pretty much.
So in theory, it sounds very easy, and kind of we were talking to, like, scale of 1 to 10, probably about a 6 with kind of the way we did it, 5 maybe on a lift. But
give you a little more access, more leverage to the bolts.
Yep. But I really appreciate everybody watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We'll do our best to answer them. So again, we're not professionals, but we just enjoy getting our hands dirty. So appreciate everybody watching. If you will, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one.